Hey Megan, sorry that it's been so long since I've uploaded a video. It's been a bit of a crazy week with work and getting ready for my graduation party that's coming up. Seen a lot of interesting movies in the past week, and that is what I want to talk about in this video. Both of these movies were pretty disturbing for me. They were very interesting. Well, the second one was more interesting than the first one. So last Saturday night, my dad and I went to go see The Purge Anarchy. It's the second in the Purge franchise, which I guess is now an actual franchise. They're going to be making another movie apparently, or so I've heard. They definitely set it up that way at the end, which... and the second one, which my dad and I just watched tonight, was Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal. And that one is definitely a brain twister. First, I really want to talk about The Purge. It has an R rating for strong and disturbing violence and graphic language, which it definitely deserves. The interesting thing about these Purge movies is that it's very much geared toward people, like younger peoples. I think particularly our age group, because as young adult millennials, we are still in that idealist mindset a bit of wanting to reshape the world we live in. And so the first movie really showed us how not to go about it and the really harmful effects that revolutionizing a government into something that kind of sounds like it has good benefits by reducing the poverty and crime levels. But obviously there's a huge catch in that deal, because for 12 hours once a year you have to go out and commit murder. Or what's really the deal of it is for 12 hours anyone is allowed to commit any crime, including murder. But it always seems that people want to commit murder more than just break into a jewelry store and get a nice ring for your fiance or soon-to-be fiance or something like that. So there's definitely flaws in the original. It's definitely like it wants to go towards the heavy violence and gore, because that's, for some reason, that's what draws people to the movies. But the second movie takes that about 5 steps further. So instead of being just about the suburban life and giving every family a security and knowing that there are others who need to go do that, but we're safe, we're gonna be okay, and obviously that kind of falls to shit. This second movie is based around the purge being the time to release the beast, let out all that pent-up aggression that you save throughout the year so you don't do anything bad like rape or murder or anything like that. But on the night of the purge, it's totally legal and fine. And I mean, as just in that mindset alone, that's horrifying. But this movie really takes it to the extra mile, the second one. There are a lot of insinuations of sexual violence that can be done during those 12 hours, kidnapping, and of course murder and revenge. Revenge was kind of a huge thing for this movie. The biggest thing that caught my attention with Purge Anarchy was the racial tension and just dramatization, I guess. I don't think dramatization is the right word, because I want to think about this in the mind of the filmmakers. So they set this up that it's the wealthy capitalists now, totalitarians, who are fueling the system, who are putting money into it because they are purging. But there are the not so well off who live in the projects who really can't put into it all that much. They're not purging, they don't have as good jobs to fund the government or the military or hold gala events or anything like that. So, they're the runts. And in this movie, there are like direct images of the wealthy hunting the poor or like the people in the projects and using them to be purged. So it kind of explains why in the first movie we would find out the poverty level is so low. It's because they were all killed out. They were the first ones to be let go because they were no good for the system. They weren't contributing to it, so they were deemed useless. Obviously, that mindset is extremely unsettling and disturbing. Because as human beings, we shouldn't think of other people as useless. Anyway, so that's how we find that out. But what is kind of tied up in that is the fact that everyone who is depicted as growing up, they're Black, Hispanic, Milano, colored across the board. And then you see the wealthy people who are funding these gala events, who are actually hunting people or seeking out revenge, are all white. And I kind of noticed this immediately, and what really stuck with me is the fact that this is what the filmmakers want us to be thinking about, is that we still live in a world where the white people are controlling stuff. And the government, of course, has their hands in every little corner and niche trying to get their way, to make things work their way. But there's still so much institutional racism. For me, that's bothersome because I don't want it to be like that. And then the next thought about this movie is that it is set in 2023. That's only 9 years from now. And the Purge Anarchy is showing the 6th annual Purge. So that means they started 6 years before that. So 3 years from now. So the filmmakers are putting into our minds that could be in the very close future, that our government could do a total 180 into supporting something to, I'm going to use euthanize because I can't think of a better word to describe it, of legally and brutally euthanizing people who can't contribute as much to the government and federal funding. That's what I want to really get across, is this is about money. It's about money and power and pretty much egoism. This is a big deal for me. Being in school for 4 years, especially a liberal arts college, and getting my degree in religion and ethics, it's just like hugely problematic. The filmmakers, I'm hoping, are trying to be satirical in a way of showing us all the wrong that can happen with the kind of utilitarian mindset that for the greatest good for everyone, we need to kill off the people who don't make as much money, who we don't include into our society just because it's systemic, because the government doesn't want it that way. That's horrible. Especially right now in America, with all of, in my belief, we are still living with civil rights as an issue. It shouldn't be, because the main movement was in the 60s, and so many people had to die for that cause. But now we're in like the 2010s, and this is still an avid portrayal in cinematic films. What also crossed my mind was that all of the relationships depicted in the movie, and this is, of course, how most cinematic movies are, or most like Hollywood movies are, is that all of the relationships are heterosexual. So it also makes me wonder, in this not so distant future, was the LGBT community cut off? Are they somewhere else, not participating? I don't know. I don't want to think into it too much, because it's just a movie. But it's meant to make us think like this. So, gotta give in a little bit. I think in the way of food for thought, watching a movie that depicts racial and socioeconomic purging as a social good for the government. However, it is also highlighted at the end that the government is completely and totally corrupt. So it's not actually good for the people. It's just good for the people who are funding the government and the government themselves. So it's not for the people. I think that's something we should question about the lives we're leading. If people are really seeing this in today's world, or think this could be a potentiality for our society in America, that freaks me out. That worries me. And of course, this was another movie depicting a distrustful and corrupt government. How many of these do we have to watch to get it? I think everyone kind of understands that all governments are corrupt in a way, and that sucks. And also about this movie, which has stuck with me all week, is that it was unnecessarily gruesome. I actually got very emotional at the end of it. I mean, it actually ended very well, and this was a well done movie. But the amount of death and just shooting and killing, I can't take watching a lot of that. But what made it harder for me to watch was the fact that it was not nonchalant killing as it is in most action movies, where a bomb goes off and good Lord knows how many people were killed. The killing in this movie was always fairly intentional. People were sought after, they were tracked down, they were hunted. And it's kind of unnerving because the government is doing it, but it's also unnerving for the fact that people do think like this. And, you act with certain intentions, but it may come off in a different way. And I don't know, for me, it's made me a little paranoid. It's made me really, really sensitive to mortality. And death is not something I fear at all. I never have. I've always have been, I don't know, knowledgeable of it. I've had a lot of family members who have passed away from any number of things. But it was watching a movie about purging and about intentionally killing and going after certain people that really freaked me out. That's not shown in movies all that often. I think we've been very desensitized to that, of any random person can get killed and they're just a bystander. It's unfortunate, it happens. But then when you watch a movie where it's so intentional and it's just that people are on a one track to get what they want, it's haunting and it's disturbing. And I just don't want that to happen. Not at all. So those are my thoughts on the Purge Anarchy, and we'll see what happens to the third one. I'm very certain that the third one is going to be about a revolution against this new founding fathers government. An interesting thought I had after watching it and during my kind of coming to terms processing it is, what if these Purge movies were the same universe as the Hunger Games? Just think about it for a second. Humor me. So the Purge happens very close to where we are now in the timeline of history, 9 years from now. A revolution starts by Carmelo Jones against the new founding fathers of America who started the Purge. He starts a revolution that catches on and they go against the government. Of course, everything is starting to fall to shit, but it's widespread. It's all over the country. So the government becomes crazed with settling the people. But so much of the country has become divided and destroyed in this revolution that they have to separate into different districts when the government becomes completely and totally totalitarian. And that, which is 75 years in the future in the, Hunger Games realm, leads us to Pan Am. This is my theory. Instead of having one evening of purging for everyone, to punish the people in every district more severely for how they revolted against the government after the Purge, every district has to sacrifice 2 children for the capital to purge. They are killing one another, but as any of us who have read or seen the book so far, it is all organized and set up by the capital and the wealthy sponsors. It's really just repeating a pattern in history of totalitarian government, of just controlling government and rebellions. So that is my thoughts on Purge. I blame Ben Franklin. He poured the tea. No, he didn't.